Hey, we're back, and this is your average esports podcast, episode 27. And with me is Skim. And this time,
What up?
we are going to do the post TI8 episode, right? Because there is so much shit we could talk about just about this one tournament. So we've decided just to focus on this one tournament. Because I'm gonna go ahead and say it, even though it's like there's still like 3 months left in the year. I'm pretty sure this is gonna go down as the best tournament of this year. It's just my guess, though. I'll have to see. Maybe the CS:GO major, might change my mind. But right now, it's looking to be the best tournament of this year so far.
I think it's almost impossible to beat this TI just for its storyline alone.
I mean,
You know, the OG,
I'm down with the gameplay. Like the gameplay was fucking amazing for me.
yeah. I feel like the games were fantastic. Like we've seen so many great games. I think you could probably pick like 3 to 4 games from this TI already and just have them in like a top 10 Hall of Fame, top
Yeah.
TI games or whatever. And then again, the storyline is absolutely fantastic. I think it did a really good job at also like creating like this side content, which I think, in my opinion, CS:GO majors do not a good job of.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people don't care for it, but I think it actually adds a lot of value to have it in between. Plus, if you're gonna have a break anyway, you might as well use actual content in that in those breaks, right? Instead of like having ads and shit. It's an unfair comparison because non-TI events all have to run ads because they aren't funded by Valve.
Yeah.
But because Valve doesn't have that issue, they can pump up that content. And I mean, you can't fault Valve for funding their own tournament and be like deduct points effectively. So you kind of have to give them credit for running this really awesome event. So in that regard, I think this TI won on all fronts, and I would say that it is super difficult for any tournament to come close this year.
Mm-hmm.
Even future TIs, I think, have a lot to live up to because
I mean, past TIs don't match up
this
this one probably.
exactly. So yeah, it was a pretty good one.
Yeah. So I was actually there. First event I think I've ever been to for a Dota 2 event. So hell of a choice, I guess, to go to this one.
Perfect.
All right. I will say though, even though I was there, I actually like a part of me did think I probably should have watched this at home just because I'm way more into the game than I am into the crowd atmosphere, and it's actually easier to watch the game at home than it is to watch it in like where I was, which is like nosebleed seats. It was like way up there, right? But it was a pretty good experience overall. I thought especially as we got towards like the latter end of the tournament, like the games were like ramping up a lot in terms of like high quality and shit. So there's a lot of shit we can talk about. You want to start with the winner, or you want to start from the beginning?
I think we'll probably start not from the beginning because we technically did do a group stage review,
Yeah.
right? So we could probably just wrap it up from like the group stage.
Alright.
From afterwards after the group stage, so basically go into the playoffs. I mean, we did have different. Nobody expected OG to make that run, right? So
Yeah.
I guess that was already like the big upset for us.
Yeah, like
The OG VGJ storm.
Yeah, like I basically thought like they were fucking geniuses for even getting into like top four in the fucking group stages. Like fucking Mad's a genius, No Tail's a
Yeah.
genius. Clearly, these two have done something without. We're doing something without Fly. And if you haven't seen it, actually, you should probably read the interview I did with fucking Mad. That's like 10K words or some shit. But it goes through a lot of the shit, despite like happening before the entire run. He goes through a lot of interesting sort of things. Did you ever read it? I'm not exactly sure.
I pretty much read most of it. I like right when you linked me, I just went through it. The thing with Mad is, in my opinion, is that and I found that I saw a lot. Like, this is not to like talk down on your interview, but a lot of what you guys talked about I saw already in previous interviews with him, and that's kind of what really strikes me with him, is that he's had this for like the past 2 years now. He's had this sort of very straightforward approach to Dota, or not really straightforward, but he sort of like sticks to his own philosophy. Like, he has a philosophy that he sort of like lives and works by, which I think is really impressive. Because a lot of times in Dota, especially, you see players oftentimes changing sort of like their tunes. Like, after like a year, they'll be totally like jaded and be like, or well, fuck friendship, for example. You know, like Moonmeander, after he got kicked from OG, he's like, screw like the power of friendship, like total bullshit or whatever. And I'm not saying that OG didn't, or maybe OG was different at the time. Maybe it was just like, there's totally different opinions on that. Maybe it was just Fly that screwed over Moonman or whatever. I think for me, Mad has had a very sort of like one philosophy that he's sort of like lived and worked by, worked by for like the past years now. It changed from, let's say, like his time as a player to like towards his coach, but as a coach and now player again, I felt like he sort of like lived by this philosophy, and I think your interview does a really good job at sort of like explaining what that philosophy is and like, you know, how he like feels as a player and whatnot, or how he feels about Dota as a player and coach. And that's something that really impresses me with him, because again, other players in Dota don't often feel that way, especially in the new ones. I think the old ones, like the veterans, they sort of have a somewhat similar approach with every team. Like Kuro, for example, I think even with Navi was sort of similar in that regard, but like all the newer ones, like Eternal Envy, for example, Arteezy, I swear to God, every season it's like you get a new character all over. It feels like they're a completely new person from like season to season, and Sumail's that to me is Sumail as well. So like, I mean, it's natural because just age-wise, they're obviously going to change a lot. Like if you're like, I mean, Sumail started out as like 16. Everybody, when they're 16, are going to be completely different when they're like 20 or 19, or at least you'd hope they would be. So in that regard, it's understandable, but still, I think Matt, despite even his young age, I think he's like what 24 or something, is very mature. Even despite what some people might say, I think he's actually very mature for his age.
Yeah, there was a question I wanted to ask him, but like after he basically like I don't want to say shut me down, but he's like, I can't really talk about that even if I want to. It's like all his like secret competition stuff, right? Because he did have like a slight change, not in terms of like philosophy, in terms of team building, but in terms of how he felt about the draft. Because I felt like earlier on in his career, he's more of like he was more anti-stratting the other guys. Whereas right now, on this OG team and on the previous OG teams, he's much more towards the like comfort picks, like your signature heroes. Get your players on those. So even if you're like losing like the draft a little bit, whether that's like in terms of the amount of execution you have to pull off or whatever, like it's better to play on your best heroes, so to say, than whatever.
I'm actually not sure if I'd agree with that, because I think when OG, like when they won the Frankfurt major, was also because they actually forced their own comfort picks. Like that's when they like forced all the like Dazzles and Phoenix. No, it wasn't actually Phoenix. Dazzle, and there was basically Fly only played like 2 heroes.
Yeah.
I recall Miracle also only playing like 3 or 4 heroes. Basically, they just knew what they were really good at, and they just played around that. So I don't know.
No, I mean like this is what I'm talking about is from like a blog years ago, like. Years ago. Like I wanted to know about that switch, but I felt like I was gonna like give away too much.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, I don't know, man. Matt might have even talked about it. I mean, that's the cool thing that I thought of, sort of during the grand finals, the grand game 5, when Casey did the last coaches interview with both coaches.
Yeah.
Was really refreshing how Parcerel was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna talk about everything," you know, because he knew that. He knew that it was the last game anyway. Like literally, last game of the season, completely different Dota. After this, might as well just give it all away. But yeah, one last thing about Mad. I know we kind of wanted to talk about we didn't really want to talk about OG directly, but now that we're talking about it anyway, do you know the football coach Jose Mourinho?
Yeah.
He is one of the most eccentric coaches in the world, and he's like super. I think a lot of people would call him arrogant because of his attitude, and I mean, he definitely displays himself as very arrogant. But one of the things that he does as a coach, which I find very fascinating, and sometimes it's a little bit overplayed, but generally, he likes to draw the attention to himself so that the media and everybody around them also automatically is like drawn to him as opposed to his team. Like there's a pattern where when his team is underperforming, he will automatically stir shit up. Like he'll intentionally provoke media, referees, the FA. Like he'll immediately throw a tantrum to sort of like he'll even receive penalties and stuff like that. Like he'll be warned, he'll receive actual penalties, like where you have like pay stuff, fines. That's the word I was looking for. He's receiving fines, and just to basically draw the attention away from his players so that they could focus on performing. And to me, it almost feels like this OG has been doing this a lot as well. Like they've been making sure that Ana and Thompson are totally like calm, right?
Yeah.
That they basically play in their most comfortable environment. And to me, one of the things is Thompson is one of those players, like a total pop star, and he'll pub and he'll constantly be using like the chat wheel, right?
Yeah.
I almost think that the rest of the G started using the chat wheel so that it doesn't draw attention to Thompson using the chat wheel. Because I think, and this again, I might be completely over-interpreting into this, 100%, but I genuinely think that they started doing it because they knew that if Thompson was the only one using the chat wheel, or Ana was the only person using the chat wheel, it'll immediately draw attention as like toxic and like whatever. You're like, oh, he's such a BM player, like he thinks way too highly of himself, like why would you like chat wheel like that? And I mean, you can actually tell by Reddit reactions that people definitely think that way.
Yeah, I know. I remember. I just think it's ridiculous to think that way, but yeah, people do think that way.
People do think that way. I remember there was a scenario actually when Matt, I think it was in, it was the upper bracket match against LGD.
Yeah.
I think when they threw that. I don't actually remember which game it was. It might have been even against EG, actually. I think it was actually against EG. Anyway, Matt uses chat wheel and immediately dies afterwards, like because he jumps into like 4 people or whatever, right?
Might have been the second game against EG then.
Yeah, I think it was. And people were like flaming Matt for that. But like, oh, BM player, karma. And I guess you could say it was karma, but at the end of the day, I think OG has literally been using the chat wheel to sort of distract from the fact that Thompson is just using chat wheel. Did you see the video where Puppy is like saying in a pub game like, I hope you kill yourself one day, Thompson?
Yeah, I saw
like
that.
Thompson can be a toxic pub player because it's super annoying to play against him, both because of playstyle but also because he keeps using the chat wheel in like a super BM way. I mean, I as a spectator find it completely hilarious, but I can understand why players would find it annoying, and then fans of that player would also find it annoying. So I legitimately think that Matt, especially as a player, has been drawing so much attention to him because he knows he can handle it, and he knows that it's going to draw the attention away from his teammates.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some truth to that. Like, we probably have to get Knoxville because I'm pretty certain he actually has the statistics of chat wheel usage.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah.
So like he could probably figure out if OG was literally just spamming it way more than before this tournament. Like for those for the 3 same players, fucking Mad, No Tail, and Jerax. And then we can see it from there. But like I always thought like the major attention towards OG was like it was like the WWE shit. It's like everybody was talking about No Tail and the fly thing, right? So that's what I thought. Like we're talking about like in terms of attention, I thought that was the problem. Like for OG specifically, because I feel like in their minds, I sometimes got the feeling like even though they were like focused on the game, a part of them might have relished it too much if they got to beat up EG, right?
Right.
Like they're like if you like relish it too much, if you're like focused too much on like winning that specific matchup or that specific team or a player in this particular instance, it can like fuck with the rest of your like game in a sense because you're putting a bit too much emotional energy into it or whatever. It's hard to like manage, hard to moderate in that sense. So yeah, that's part of it. But like the other part, if you're talking about OGs, like they did figure out their own style throughout this tournament, and they came to a completely different answer to LGD basically, which is what I found so interesting about the finals. Is because basically, I don't know how you look at it, but I think they basically both these teams basically proved they were the 2 best teams at this event by the time they got to the finals.
It kind of reminded me of TI4 finals, where I think both teams really had a good idea of how the meta works, but in a lot of ways, I think, and I guess maybe that's more TI3 in that regard. But OG, in my opinion, has like. So LGD, I think, is the best team at this event in terms of like actually playing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think OG has the best idea of how to approach the patch. OG, in my opinion, this entire tournament, and I think they showed it in the finals as well. Like the fact that they had so many comeback games, that's not a surprise. Like they specifically play and draft for that because they realized that this patch right now favors comebacks.
Mm-hmm.
Like the comeback hold is huge. And buyback not being like as punishable as it was before because you still get like I think you get like before buying back you wouldn't get as much gold, but now you technically do get a significant amount of gold still. Or was that how? Either way, they specifically like when they take fights, they almost purposely. That's why they dropped the Spectre so often for Ana because they knew if we lose a fight, we can, or if we start to lose a fight, we can always buy back on Ana and just haunt him in. Like they knew that they could always play from behind because that's what the game currently favors.
Yep.
And that's why they had so many comeback stories. LGD, on the other hand, I think just has a really good grasp of how to control the game, more so than any other team. Like, I think they control the pace of the game like almost no other team, and they almost play to perfection. I say almost because they obviously lost to OG, and I think OG sort of like exploited LGD's weakness, and I think which is ironic, but I honestly think LGD's weakness is actually late game. I think late game they get pressured so hard by themselves as well that they just pressure. Like, honestly, they only lost the finals and the upper bracket because they themselves were unable to close out the game. I don't want to take anything away from OG, but I think a team with that advantage in so many games has to be able to close it out, and they just weren't able to. And I think they've played fantastic tournaments. They've played a fantastic tournament, but I do think you have to point fingers at both Ame and Maybe here, because in that one game where they're like game 4 in the finals, Ame just waves one back in for no good reason. Mm-hmm. Like, he waves in because he's cocky, he has the talent where he has multiple waveforms, and he thinks he can just probably get away with it, but it's just so cocky. And if it works, what does it accomplish? Because he doesn't have the shotgun build, he can't even shotgun anybody. So he literally just does it for the BM or for like whatever. And he dies, and then maybe tries to help him as a Bloodseeker. What's he supposed to do? And both of them dying actually just lost them the game. Like, it straight up lost them the game because of the comeback gold mechanic. It just awarded OG with not only so much gold but also experience and a lot. I don't know. It just made the comeback for OG so much easier. And that's one of the things. OG completely exploited the patch. They knew how to approach the patch, and it's not like the teams didn't know what they were doing. Like, they saw OG is telegraphing with their drafts that they don't want to take the early game at all. Like, they don't care about the lanes, they don't care about the mid game. They literally just want to make sure they have a good late game. Like, they can't always come back from behind. And in that sense is sort of very reminiscent of TI8 Alliance. Alliance also didn't have like some sort of like secret strat where like, oh, what are they doing? No, you know what they're gonna do. You just can't stop them. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. OG just in this tournament, I think, were so good. Like, their game plan was so good that nobody else was able to stop them.
Yeah, like I didn't release this yet, but basically I did an interview with Heen, and he basically told me this, like, in this current like Dota, 2 team fights is all you need to make a comeback. That's basically what he said. Yeah. And like and the reason he said that was actually similar to your points. Like, it wasn't really about the gold. It was the fact that like, the XP shift was like massive towards the other team. So if you lose 2 team fights and you're like way ahead, you're actually behind now at that point. And so if you think about it that way, basically like LGD's game plan and OG's game plan are polar opposites in terms of the amount of pressure that's required on each individual player to execute. Because like OG like the only 2 players like you can think of like I don't think actually any of them were necessarily that pressured because of the way they have to execute across the board. Like, maybe Anna, just because like there were like a bunch of times everybody was literally just hunting him forever, but beyond that it was like they always had a belief like the longer we go the more likely we are to make a comeback, whereas LGD, like, their game plan was clearly like the longer we go the less likely we are to win. So, and if you have that timer on your head, like the pressure is just going to keep mounting as time ticks on. So like, fair play to LGD. I think they were fucking amazing throughout this entire event. But like, that little bit might have been the difference between them winning and them losing this year.
No, I definitely agree that OG basically, to a degree, when you get pressured all game long in a way, mm-hmm. like technically pressured, at some point you basically start like ignoring the pressure because it's not pressure anymore. Like, if that literally happens every game to you, you get used to it. Yep. Like that's just it, right? And they literally put themselves into this position pretty much every series from the get-go. They weren't like stomping lanes and shit like that. They just knew, like you said, 1 or 2 team fights and you can turn it around. And I think in that sense, both Ana and Thompson are probably the perfect carries and mid for that, because they are intuitively good at these kind of like just single moments of geniuses. I'm not saying that they aren't consistently good, but if you actually watch that finals, like, they made a lot of mistakes. No, I don't want to, like, they are fantastic characters, and Ana definitely MVP maybe, probably MVP, or at least best player from OG. But still, in that finals, they made a lot of mistakes. Like, they got picked off. Like, Thompson, I very vividly remember him just with the Aegis walking down mid for no reason. on his Invoker. I'm not actually sure if he had Invoker, if he had the Aegis, but he definitely just walked down mid, no teammate in sight, he just died. Like, there's no reason to do that at that stage of the game. There was no farm to be had either. Like, he wasn't even farming, he just ran down mid. So that's one of the things. Like, they definitely made mistakes, but the thing is, they also can totally outplay your opponent. Like, in this scenario, if there's like 10 plays, they probably like do 5 bad ones and 5 really good ones, right? But that's the thing, in the current meta, that matters. That doesn't actually matter how many bad plays you make, as long as you still make the good ones. Whereas on LGD's side, they actually made a lot of good. They actually made a lot of good plays, but I think they also just, in the key moments, that's when they make the bad plays. Again, I want to highlight the whole morphing thing. Like, morphing, waveforming into the enemies is just game throwing in this current meta. But yeah, OG, I think, just perfectly knew how to approach the patch. LGD, it's honestly a big shame. Like, it feels like nobody else was close to figuring out the patch as well as OG did.
Mm-hmm.
And LGD just was...
So
it feels like any other tournament, it feels like LGD takes this title no matter what, right? It just feels that way. But they were... I don't know. The thing is, if you watch a grand final game and you see if you showed one person that hasn't watched TI, all of TI, right? If you show them just the game where FY is destroying on his clockwork, and you tell them that's a grand final game, you ask him what the outcome is. Like, they could never imagine OG winning that game or that series, right?
Yep.
Like, if you get trashed that way, the way that they got trashed against FY, you'd think that they would never be able to come back from that, or that LGD was just so good. But I don't know.
Oh, man. Fucking FY.
Very unfortunate.
FY might have been like the MVP of this tournament also.
Yeah.
Like, he's definitely a candidate. He was fucking amazing, man. So, like, go ahead.
Oh no, I was actually gonna make the transition to a different topic. So if you...
Oh yeah, basically, there was a moment where I was like, there was a moment I was going to write a different article depending on how the finals went, because like during the midst of the finals, it's actually hard to tell who was going to win that. Like, even now, like when you look at it, it's like, well, Game 4 could have actually swung in LGD's favor if Ame didn't make that mistake, right? And like Game 5, even though like OG didn't win it out, like LGD still had their chances in that game too. So it was like, it was pretty closely contested the entire way through. So I just thought it would have been fitting if he would have been like the last prince of like the fucking dying empire of Chinese Dota.
I mean, it feels so bad for him. It feels like no player, like, in terms of individual performances, it feels like how much more does one player really need to do to just win a goddamn title, right?
I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. Like, I'll put that forward. I don't think he did anything wrong.
Well,
like,
yes,
relatively,
definitely.
like we're talking about like not 100%, but like literally, like, is there another player who played as good as him? Maybe Ana. That's it. Like,
yeah, feels bad. But anyway, I wanted to make the transition to newbie. Actually,
okay.
This patch right now, but just to go back to the bracket, to the beginning of the bracket, I guess, this patch technically should have favored newbie. I think out of all the teams in the past 3 years, maybe, I think I can't really think of a better team aside from OG now, I guess, that plays so well from behind. Like, they play so well from behind. But honestly, just watching them in the group stage and in that best of one, it feels like that team
was already dead.
It was definitely already dead. Like, this team, we talked about this plenty of times, that they probably should have even made a change, like, after TI last year.
Yeah.
Then the half year after TI, they definitely should have made a change. And then, like, even going into towards the end of the season, they're like, well, newbie, just come on, please, do yourselves a favor and just change already. And rumor has it that they are completely disbanding effectively. I'm not surprised. But yeah, it feels like such a shame, though, because, again, this team, better than anybody, was able to play it like gods from behind. Mm-hmm. I legitimately think if this is newbie from TI7, they probably would have taken it, because their ability to hold the high ground for so long is incredible. And that even goes beyond what OG has done. Like, OG hasn't even done, like, proper high ground holds. Like, what they have done is just forcing a team fight at any point of the game, just winning the team fight and then winning the game. Mm-hmm. But newbie is able to consistently, like, repel opponents. Like, you don't take Raxus against newbie. OG definitely has played with, like, 2 Raxus down or whatever, right? Yep. But that's the thing. Newbie just right now dead, and I'm almost glad that this result happened to them in China, because they needed to reform. So I guess this is my conclusion for all of the Chinese teams in the lower bracket
They
that
all
got
need a
eliminated
fucking
early.
shuffle.
They needed this loss to shuffle because they're so goddamn bad.
Yeah, like basically, I think it's like I don't remember all of them. But I feel like outside of maybe TI1, and I don't really count TI1 for obvious reasons, like nobody had the game and whatnot. But
Right.
outside of that, like I feel like this might be the worst performance any Chinese region has had as a whole.
Oh no, it's
TI,
definitely the worst.
right? Like,
Definitely the worst. Definitely the worst. No doubt. No doubt about
like
it.
even in the years where like a Western team wins, like five of the top 8 are usually Chinese teams because that's how good they were, at least for that one tournament, right? But this year, like all of them dropped out, and the last guy was the Prince, right? So it was like,
No, like even if LG had won, this would have been by far the worst result of any for the Chinese region in any TI. And there's actually going to be an article from. Have you met him? God bless Mali. Did you have the chance of meeting him at TI by any chance?
I didn't meet him at TI, but I knew he was there for something. I forgot what.
Yeah, I mean I mean he works for Mars TV, so they're
Mars
probably
TV,
just
so he's doing something right. But,
basically he wrote a. I mean I guess I could also highlight my own article or my own blog. I posted a little bit about this, but he's also going to post like a really good one, so I'm not going to spoil it too much. But this is by far the worst. There's several reasons for it. Like it starts right at the top from like management, goes to the players. Like they're so stubborn, and again, this could be an entire episode if you wanted to. Even they're so stubborn about like the way they build teams. Like they will just recycle the old player pool. Like Vici Gaming is literally the old eHome plus 2 new youngsters, and I say youngsters even though they literally played on pro teams for like 2 years before that already. Like you would never see an OG Thompson in China because Thompson is everything that the Chinese almost stand against. Like he's a pop star. How dare you pick up a pop star? You know the only team that picked up a pop star and won with it? LGD. Well, yeah, no, well, I mean this season, right?
Oh, this season. Yeah.
But yeah, no, like that's the thing, right? It for the past 3-4 years, the most successful teams in China have always been teams that have not recycled the old player pool, but instead picked the player that wasn't really in like a Chinese top team beforehand. So they either recruited players from outside, like KP, Xnova, Afu, or they had like these youngsters that literally were pop stars and not already like playing MDL for like for like years or something. Like Wings, obviously. Then they had CDEC. CDEC was a team, by the way, completely drafted by Maybe. Like they never played anything.
Maybe's old squad, they didn't ditch them, and they became really good. Yeah.
Well, technically he ditched them, but yeah. They became really good. So yeah, I legitimately think that's the key to success. But again, this is like a topic for another day.
Yeah.
China's trash.
Yeah, it's a very complicated subject because it's not like every fucking pub star is good. Like you have to, and it's not like every pub star is bad either. Like the problem with China is they think they're all bad, and that's not the case.
Yeah, no, that definitely. I don't think that just picking up like a random pop star is automatically going to make you like a viable team. But that's again, look out for Mali's blog post if he ever publishes it. It's a really good one that touches on exactly that subject.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to talk about it now, but I that feel like taking away his points. So I'm gonna not.
Yeah. I guess one last thing I'll touch on OG is somehow fucking Mad won as not a coach. I feel like that's fucking insane. I'd like to point that out.
You know,
one last time.
I was at TI last year, and I was in the press area, and I interviewed him for like piece on coaching in general. Mm-hmm. Actually, that might have even been the year before that, but no, I definitely talked about it with him again last year though as well. And one of the questions was like, "Yo, does it not like it? Like, do you not have that itch? You just want to play?" And he's like, "Well, I kind of do, and I definitely want." Like, he has definitely considered numerous times not continuing coaching OG and instead just starting his own player career again. But he never like found the right time, and he also wanted to do right. Like, he also wanted to do right by OG. Like, he literally just wanted to win the Aegis with them, and that's why he couldn't.
Now he's
step
done both.
down as a coach.
Now he's done
and
both.
now he's done both. It's absolutely incredible. And I mean, you saw it on stream where, like, in the arena, right? Like, the way he conducted himself in the booth, he was still a coach. Like, he literally, the way he, like, he wasn't sitting in his own chair. He, like, moved around. He had, like, all the notes and he, like, showing no-tail shit, like, about the draft and stuff. Like, that is classic coach behavior. and it is impressive that he was able to like transition this smoothly into like a playing position, because we've seen this from other coaches like Bobo, for example. Like, no offense to Bobo, but he's not been able to really transition as a coach to like a player, like a successful coach to a successful player, that is, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a bit of a struggle, because I think for a lot of people it is easier to be coach because you can objectively look at it and people will probably listen to you more, and like asserting your own authority on people as a coach, as an outsider, is easier than somebody that's probably just as at fault at like certain results and shit like you are in a lot of ways. So that's, again, mad respects to Ceb. Like, it is absolutely incredible that he's been able to do that.
Yeah, like so much weird. I just can't get over it. How many fucking things they have to get right to win this TI is like ridiculous.
It's incredible.
It's like 8, 9, 10, 11, like 12 different things had to go right. Like, what the hell is this? And then I guess one last point for LGD is I'm pretty sure, like, even though we're not talking about the roster shuffle, I'm pretty sure this LGD team's probably going to stick together, even though they lost the Aegis. Like, I feel like this is a different loss compared to Newbie's loss. What do you think?
The thing is, I think they're in a different position, in a much more different position, because they didn't necessarily lose because they're like bad. Plus, I don't think there's any upgrade for them available. Whereas for Newbie, I thought there was definitely upgrades available.
Yeah.
Like, I can look at LGD and probably nominate 4 of them for like the best team at this event, or the best players at this event. Maybe let's say 3. 4 is probably a little bit exaggerated, but like
Nova, FY.
I for sure thought X Nova, FY were without a doubt the best supports at this event.
I thought they were the best supports too.
Yeah, and then we have what? Then we have maybe really probably, yeah, maybe, and that's the thing, right? There weren't actually that many good offlaners as well. Yeah. Like that, I don't think that many offlaners stood out. You could probably argue S4 maybe. I think there's good arguments for S4. But generally speaking, I think Chalice has really stepped up this tournament.
Yeah, I thought Chalice was really good as an offlaner, and then it's always hard to differentiate between like individual skill and team, and like team success. So it's hard to say, but like I feel like LGD in terms of individual skill, there wasn't much wrong there. Like, even if you want to point out like Ame's mistakes, that's like 1 or 2 mistakes, but that was like the difference between winning and losing. So it's like hard, right? So
yeah, and the thing is with Newbie, I thought that Faith and Mugi and even Kaka to a certain extent were definitely like weaknesses of the team.
Yeah.
Kaka was super inconsistent last year. Faith has always been individually actually just been a weak player. And Mugi just honestly just still, and I feel almost like
he's done.
He's done. I don't see him in a top team anymore. Like, I think he's actually gotten worse this season. And that's the thing. I just don't see that with Ame.
Yeah, he has to go rebuild his career. I'm not exactly sure how, but whether that's like a role change or whatever.
Oh.
But yeah, I think he's done. Guess we'll go to the 3rd place?
Yeah, let's go to 3rd place. EG. I mean, we already touched on his 4. I think he's played a very solid tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been more impactful in a lot of ways. Like, sometimes it felt like he was just like sort of being dragged along. Not where he was just trotting behind. Like, I'm not saying that he was necessarily worse than the others, but sometimes it just didn't feel like he was actually carrying the game. But then again, he definitely also played his role really perfectly. He applied a lot of pressure early on. Like, he was at some point like the number 1 tower pusher in the tournament or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think he played. I mean, overall, I mean, if you place third, it's hard to not say that the guys played like a solid event, like a good event, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that if I had to point at somebody and say that they could have performed better, I probably actually still have to go back to RTZ. I know that in the preview to the playoffs, they said that he had already performed like really well, but I still feel like there's more. Like, I know there's more. Or I would assume that there's more, but it just doesn't feel like he has shown it at all at TI. I recall saying that, like, with Sumail, I can always see him, like, basically beating his own performance, like, overperforming, and basically performing better than what we've seen before, like, in new peak Sumail.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've seen a peak RTZ this event.
Yeah, I don't think we have either. I don't know how you felt about EG's like strategy. I just felt like they were too straightforward, I guess. Like,
They were very one-dimensional.
yeah, like
I think like their group after their group stage, I think it didn't really take too long for people to figure them out. And I'm honestly surprised that they got as far as they did because I for sure thought Liquid at the very least would be able to stop them.
yeah, like yeah, I still feel like even though like they got third here, I actually think it's like another team that should probably stick together, to be honest. But I just felt like like we're talking about like some individual points here, but I feel like in terms of just like strategy, I felt like they were let down a bit. Like I felt like all right, in terms if we're gonna talk about EG, I think execution let them down in the OG in the OG series. I feel like they could have closed that one out, especially in the third game. But part of that might also have to do with like the strategy of the game. Like they basically did like give up RTZ in the early game, and he was never able to come back. And since they were like
Right.
running the entire game, the entire way with Sumail, you can't get comeback gold that way. So RTZ was always in the dumpster from the beginning. So I don't actually blame him for that one. But like, I don't know. It just felt like when we got towards the end, they had run out of they were no longer defining the meta like they were in the group stages. They were following along the meta. Like they couldn't do the LGD style of like we're so fucking good at every fucking role and we're gonna do all the map control shit. And they couldn't do the OG style of well we have fucking Anna, so if you get to 40 minutes you lose. Like they couldn't do either of those, and then I think that's why they lost in the end. Like even though I thought they were a pretty solid team throughout.
See, that's the thing, and I don't want to take anything away from EG because I think they actually they played a good tournament. I mean, they did place third,
Yeah,
and
like,
it
third's
feels
no
like
joke.
it's no joke. But at the same time, like they won against VP, who I didn't rate that highly to begin with because I knew that they were gonna be top 6 at most.
Yeah.
I predicted that, by the way. Hello. And then they played against Liquid, who I thought was also feeling a little bit off towards the end of that event. Like even against in their win against Secret, I like when they won against Secret, I almost knew that they wouldn't make it against EG because it felt like they were running out of steam. I legitimately felt that they were running out of steam, and honestly, I wonder if they have to change as well, roster change. But we'll talk about that later. EG. Overall, still again very solid performance. I do think that over time this team is going to be incredibly scary. Like if they stick together, I think that can be very scary.
I think they have to stick together. Like the potential is just too good at this point. You've got
the potential is too good, but if you're Sumail and Arteezy, at what point do you wonder that you can achieve whether or not you can achieve more if you actually split? You know.
Well, I mean, I talked to Crit, and he basically thinks like that duo has never been a problem. Whereas,
no, I'm not saying that it is, but like at some point you have to wonder. Like if you're never if you like, so that's the thing, right? Dota players actually, in my opinion, have a very skewed opinion of like what works and what doesn't in a lot of ways, especially if you're friends. Like they are like the boys, like Crit, Artesian. I'm not saying that they are the problem, but if they never win a title, they have to you have to assume that they are the problem.
Yeah.
Because these players, this caliber of players, they need to win titles, and that's the thing. Like if they continue not to win titles, I think, and I mean we're now what 2 years down the road with this now.
Yeah.
They have to accept that they are the problem. There's actually in English in football, England used to have the golden generation, right? They had the absolute best players in the world in their lineup, but two of them, especially Gerard and Lampard, both of them were considered to be the absolute best midfielders of their time, or two of the best best midfielders at the time. But they played a similar position, and England with that squad never came even close to winning a title. And that's the thing. I genuinely think that Sumail and Arteezy are two of the best players in their time, but unfortunately, in their roles just overlap too much. And they are two absolute star players. And I feel like in Dota, it is incredibly difficult to have multiple star players in the lineup. And, I mean, again, the results at the
core and support, right? That's what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. Like 2 star players in like the core positions. And that's where, I mean, the results currently speak against them. If they win TI next year, we'll be singing a whole different tune, and it'll be like, well, this is the perfect story. You know, they just need a time. Well, yada yada yada. But if they continue to lose,
I mean, luckily in this season, I think like the rules. I forget the exact specifications, but the rules have changed for roster shuffles, so it's like way easier to do them now, even if you like lose out on points.
Effectively, because you aren't getting punished as like there's no roster lock.
Yeah.
Right. So they could change more if they wanted to, but we'll see. I don't think they should split just yet because I feel like, and this is something that we've talked about at length now, they found like the right composition for this team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, clearly something must have worked if they went from open qualifier to like actually placing third.
Yeah.
So if as long as their personality still match, I think they should just stick it out.
Yeah. All right. Like, yeah, it's just I gotta say it. I guess I don't know if like if the choice came down between Arteezy or Sumail, I'd probably pick Sumail, right?
If you're EG, I mean, yeah, 100%.
EG, right? Like, that's a rough choice for them because I feel like Arteezy's always been like their boy, so to say.
It is a rough choice, but effectively Sumail is their biggest boy, like
the biggest boy. Biggest boy.
I mean, he won TI, like they won TI with him, and he has, in my opinion, performed much better over the past years. Like Arteezy has just underperformed and at a lot of events.
Yeah,
and like it's I know it's a meme, like, oh, it's 3 TI winners plus Arteezy, yada yada, but ultimately
ultimately the meme becomes reality if he never proves otherwise. Yes. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Like, all right. I think that's a good way to put it. I guess we'll go to Liquid now.
Yeah.
Because Liquid is an interesting team. I think you and Noxil and me all chose them to like win this tournament before it started.
Well, I think we all had pretty much had them as title defenders. I think a lot of people still did, even like after groups. I mean,
they were the best in the group. So.
But yeah, they were the best in the group. So people were like, yeah, Liquid got this, and then they sort of like met a quick end. I think.
Yeah.
Like getting 2-0'd by LGD is actually, it's honestly surprising. I didn't think they would, and they got crushed, by the way. Like they actually got really, really crushed. Like they got absolutely crushed. And then they lost 2-0 against EG, and it wasn't actually that close either against EG. I think EG was pretty much in control of both games, and
yeah.
I think this is something that Liquid as a team, they should have been able to handle that. Like, they got pressured early on, and they should have been able to handle that. Yeah, one game LGD was maybe like a drafting issue. One game EG was maybe also a drafting issue. But if those were drafting issues, like, this needs to be addressed. And I think Liquid, honestly, they might need a change. It sounds kind of weird considering they had such a good season, and no team ever has like such a good second season if they already like win TI, right? But I mean, if anything, that kind of like almost proves my point. Like, if you're already like, if this is an anomaly, do you really want to test out whether you can keep being an anomaly even further, or
do you want to go with the Virtus Pro CS:GO route? Is that what you're asking?
Basically, do you really want to go that route? I think PPD was a genius for changing the roster post TI win, because there's no way they would ever stick, like they would continue or were able to continue their winning streak or whatever, their form. I can see why Liquid wouldn't make a change because, you know, the whole like, oh, we're all such good friends and shit. But I think if the opportunity arises, they should make a change.
All right.
And I legitimately think it has to be either Matuma Man or Mind Control, and I think I think it has to be Mind Control at this point. Not Mind Control, Matuma Man. Sorry. I feel like, and this is granted, he gets the sacrificial role as a carry because the way they draft and the way they build their team. But I feel like as a sacrificial carry, he's just not that good anymore.
Okay.
And
So I guess this goes into a mini preview because I only have one interview left from TI. It's actually from Heen, the coach of Liquid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And about the thing about draft, he actually says something interesting. It was like, he thinks it's like 70-30 in terms of like importance of draft to gameplay. But what he means by that is like it's not separated. As in, if you have a bad draft, it's because you weren't a good team. Like that's like the draft is like a literal reflection of your knowledge and skill as a team. So the fact that they had drafting issues in both games means they weren't that good as a team. In like if I take that opinion and like try to extrapolate from that into these examples, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, then yeah, maybe they do need to change just because there's no like the chances of going back up to like TI winning status are pretty rare. Like we 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 are actually getting to the point where you might want to talk about them as if they were the Virtus Pro version of CS:GO, because that version of Virtus Pro, they always made you think, oh man, maybe they can be champions this time, maybe they can be champions this time, and they always give you great performances. They always got you top fours or top or playoff runs, whatever. Like this Team Liquid did throughout the entire year, but they rarely actually won the tournament like this Team Liquid did. They only did it at the Super Major, right?
Right.
Well,
technically they also had like
a few of the smaller events, but never like the majors. And even those were like iffy because some of those they could have and should have taken, right? So if you look at it that way, and you look at like the way I model teams, is like there's only like outside of Virtus Pro and Wings, every other team in fucking history has fallen off after like the 9-month 1 year mark. Like it just happens. Nobody knows. Like there could be a bunch of different reasons why, but the data tells me unless you're Virtus Pro, unless you're Wings, and that Wings is already dead, by the way, and Virtus Pro is also dead. And I mean, both those cases that took like 3 or 4 years. So cheers to them. But like in outside of those cases, like you're eventually just gonna decline. I feel like that's what's happening in this Liquid. But here's the problem, like. You can't kick out Kuroki because I think he's basically the best leader. I feel like
I mean he's the foundation of the team. Like
he like defines the team more than any other player on this team. You can't kick out Miracle because he might be the best player in the world still. Like I don't see an argument against that. You also can kick out GH. Like I don't necessarily think he's like the best support, but I think he's among the best supports at least. Right.
I legitimately actually think he's among the best supports. Like if I had to make a list of top like 4 position supports, he's definitely on that list. Maybe even top 3. But
yeah, but here's the problem with the last. Here's the problem with the last two. From the interview with Heen, he basically says like Matoma Man is basically the second caller.
Matoma Man is the seventh. Yeah. The thing is though, like but that's just saying that like the next this is an issue on multiple levels for me.
Yeah.
Because even if he is like another caller or a second caller, right? Even if he's a second caller, that's in Dota. I mean, as a carry, that's almost like that's kind of what you have to be.
Mm-hmm.
A lot like carries need to be able to guide the game because they almost always have a better feel of how the game is going to go.
Yeah.
Especially in like the mid to late game, and like if you actually look at a lot of carries out there, like a lot of them are active callers, Arteezy, Envy. I remember Burning was a very active caller as well. Like if you look at the top carries, they have to be callers. Like that kind of defines their skill.
Like the thing is like basically in the exact same quote, he basically says like that's the difference between Matoma Man and a bunch of the other carries was he had better like vocals or better like calls than they did. And like a lot of them don't do that. So even though like we named a few of them, like I get the feeling like it's gonna be hard to find a suitable replacement for Matoma Man, but it's also gonna be hard to find a suitable replacement for Mind Control.
Like I don't doubt that it would be difficult.
Like I feel like I think we both agree. GH, Miracle, Kuroki, these 3 you have to keep no matter what.
You have to keep them. And there's probably no one better out there anyway.
Yeah. But like the last 2, it's like it's gonna be incredibly hard. Like I think you're gonna have to go back to the pubs and like gamble on somebody. Like I think that's the only way you could do it, maybe. Like, but who would you gamble? It's so iffy, man.
I mean, the thing is though, it's definitely hard, and it's bound to be hard because we're talking 4th place TI here, right? Where there's literally 15 players that placed better than them. And probably only a handful more that would actually be viable as replacements, if at all. But that's the thing. Like, if you want to win TI, you got to
do it.
You got to do it. Like, do you want to draft a lineup that plays for 4th place, like that could place 4th place again, or do you want a lineup that can play TI, like that can win TI again? I know a lot of people won't agree with us because they will say, "Well, Team Liquid, it was just like 2 bad games, yada yada." But I honestly think that. I don't see this team progressing as like forward as like they won't play for a TI win next season. I just don't see this happening because I think they had major weaknesses in this TI run.
Yeah.
and in this entire season actually. And yeah, they still performed well like here and there, but like there were reasons why they only placed fourth at several events. Like we say, oh wow, you won TI, you still placed fourth. Yeah, that's great. But if you were a TI, like we shouldn't look at them as TI champions, but as TI like competitors. Like they want to win TI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we look at it that way, they still only placed like fourth, third in several events, and they definitely had reasons for why they lost those tournaments. Yeah, they won that one tournament, and yeah, they placed fourth here now. But still, going forward, like, are they really gonna get better with this lineup after 2 years now, 2 seasons? I just have major doubts, and that's why I think they need to change somebody. Is it gonna be difficult? Yeah. Is somebody on the market right now? Probably not. I definitely, yeah, I agree with you. But that's the thing, right? And that's something that I said about the Chinese scene as well. You need to make those gambles. You need to make those risks.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It's gonna be like Liquid's in a really tough spot because it feels like they're in a trick where like it looks like if you just stick together, maybe you can get it to work. But I feel like I feel like the actual thing you should do if you're trying to win TI is you have to make a change.
I agree. But I can't understand if they wouldn't make a change because I mean they've placed
so
such
well,
a big
right?
and not only have they done so well, but they've placed such an emphasis on like the cohesion in the team and like following Kuro as a leader and shit like that. And that is very hard to replicate. And I mean, it did take the first iteration of Liquid quite some time. Yeah, they had Bulba, but the issues that they had as a team weren't solely based on having Bulba. Like, you don't have, like, the way they played there was just
Bulba
not just
could
because
now
Bulba
literally
was driving.
assassinate the entire team.
Like Bulba can't just play on 5 computers and play collectively bad.
Yeah.
So I genuinely think that they need to gamble on somebody. I mean, hell, GH is somebody they gambled on, right?
Yeah.
And it worked
I mean,
out. Mind Control is somebody that
I mean,
they gambled on.
the other side of that gamble, GH was Bulba, so I mean, it was worth it.
Well,
Like,
true.
Sorry to point that out. Was true.
But yeah, I genuinely think that this team, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe like the first couple of events they immediately crush it or whatever. But I think they will get outpaced by these teams, especially now that we had like a hard reset in terms of like shuffling. Like if you look at some of these seasons, like some post TI shuffles aren't actually hard resets because multiple teams will stick together. But I think this season could very well be a hard reset in terms of like shuffles, and that's why I think
like literally every Chinese team outside of LGD should shuffle.
Yeah, and probably will as well. Like I heavily doubt that any of those teams.
There's no way
together.
like they're sticking together. Like
yeah.
And then as for the West, I think Liquid is literally the last like of like I think OG should stick together because they straight up want TI. Like, why not, right? At that point, EG should stick together. Liquid is on the cusp. Like, I can see it go either way. They can stick together or they can switch. But I think from there on, everybody should be shuffling. And I guess what that moves us to Virtus Pro. Because do you think Virtus Pro should shuffle? Like, because all right, let me put it this way: Virtus Pro, best DPC team, incredibly dominant throughout the season. Like I feel like they were like the best team throughout most of the time until like LGD came on towards the end, and then come to this TI, PBD had some prophetic words he once said at ESL Birmingham. I hope it's heating up in the summer, and I hope the Bears don't choke in the summer at TIs like they usually do. And here we are.
The funny thing is, I think if Optic had faced them one round later, I think they actually won it. Like, you could already tell that VP was choking during
VP was already choking against Optic.
Yeah, but it just wasn't enough yet. But I feel like if they had, like, if the roles had been reversed, like if VP had to face EG first or something, or like any other team first, and had already started choking in there, and then faced Optic, I think Optic take that series because Optic was actually pretty well prepared for them. But yeah, VP, they need to change something. I'm not sure if they need to necessarily change rosters, but they need to change something because, and I wrote about this as well, their mentality is obviously fucked. Like, the way they're approaching the game at TI, like, they're way too pressured. Like, they completely throw everything away that they've sort of, like, done up until that point and just do something completely different. Like, that kind of mentality just doesn't work on the big stage. And, I mean, I think we even talked about this, right? This obviously is something that goes beyond TI. Like, they just can't perform on the stage, on the big stage, that is. Like, yeah, they won the majors, but they only won majors in name. They didn't actually win the big tournaments. The big tournaments, the Kiev major, DAC, super major, that's when they didn't show up. Like, they kind of close at the super major, I guess, and Liquid just really outplayed them.
I thought they showed up in super major, but Liquid outplayed them at the end.
Yeah, Liquid outplayed them at the end, so you could definitely give them that. But still, like, we still look at DAC, Kiev major, and then, like, now, like, they definitely choked out of there.
Mm-hmm. Like,
and that, yeah, go ahead.
Like, I feel like Virtus Pro might stay together because I think they're gonna trick themselves into thinking this is a meta problem. Because like we said, like, this meta is all about the late scaling. It's about getting hard carry. It's about getting Ana to the end, right? And Virtus Pro don't play like that at all. But like,
you know what's really funny about that is, actually, I had a discussion with Knoxville about this, and he basically said, like, isn't it kind of weird that basically one person can decide what the meta is going to look like? Like, IceRock can effectively buff or nerf a single team if he wants to. Yeah. Like, if he wanted to, he could just basically buff all the heroes that Virtus Pro plays, and maybe even buff the whole playstyle. Like, oh, if you win your lanes, you immediately win the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, there have been patches that literally work that way, right?
Yeah.
And then a lot of, like, most times after TI, IceRock will immediately nerf whatever it is the top team is doing. So basically, expect all the heroes that OG played to win TI, like Spectre, whatever, expect them to be nerfed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fucked up, because you technically direct your balance changes to the way of one team is playing. And in that sense, like you said, definitely Virtus Pro, like, there could be a patch next year where they literally get everything what they would want out of Dota, and they could win TI and be like, well, guess we were right all along, or something. But I do think that, like, their sort of, like, mental state during these big stage tournaments is just really messed up.
Like, I just don't know how you would fix that. I don't think you can fix that. Like, what are you going to do? Get a psychiatrist? Like, as far as we know, that's like a 50-50 gamble at best.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's something that I wrote about as well, right? Like, sometimes players just don't fix that. Like, sometimes players just will never win the championship.
Yeah.
Like, there are players in, like, sports history that literally just don't win the championship because they can't fix... I wouldn't call it a minor issue or, like, an easy issue to fix, but they just can't, like, overcome this, like, seemingly small thing, which is just basically their own mentality.
Yeah. So it's like Virtus Pro, I think they're gonna stick together, even though I don't think they should. But at the same time, listen, if the meta shifts to them, then it'll look fucking great. But basically, you're just putting your hands your feet in the hands of IceRock at that point. Like,
oh,
that's not something I like.
All right, Secret then. Also placing 5th, 6th. Honestly, I thought this was also pretty much to be expected.
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel like
pretty much had them in this.
They should have, right?
Honestly, I think the way they played here and there, I almost felt like this result might have been too good for them.
Okay. Yeah.
I felt like they didn't necessarily play as well as this result necessarily reflects.
Mm-hmm.
But then they did beat VGG Storm in a direct matchup, which I legitimately thought, up until that match, I thought VGG Storm had performed better at this event.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think VGG Storm would have probably performed over them, but then they beat them directly. Well, it doesn't necessarily, like, we've talked about this before, right? Just because you beat a team doesn't necessarily mean you're actually the better team. Like, It just means that you match up better against them. I just thought that VGG Storm was really bad that day. Either way, Secret probably going to make a roster change. There have already been lots of rumors. I think they should make a roster change, because I think a lot of their players are also players that would want more titles throughout the season. I don't necessarily think that the core of this team can win TI the way they are just yet. Like, I think they are not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
If they make, like, a super crazy roster change, maybe. But I think they should keep their, like, Puppy Yapsor should stay. That's actually a really good support duo. I think they work really well together. Mid one I think should stay, but I would still be very cautious. Like, I thought this season was actually incredibly lackluster.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he like the rest of his team started out pretty hot, but
he fell down.
Ever since December, I've basically not seen mid one perform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I think you can switch any of the cores. Like, I feel like you can even switch Yapsor if you have like a better prospect. but I don't necessarily see a better prospect in either NA or EU. So in that sense, I don't think he should get him.
I mean, I think there's basically no better 4 position available right now. The only other 4 position that's available
maybe
is Zai.
Zai would be a better choice, though, I think.
Oh yeah, he would be a better choice. If you can get Zai over Yapsor, I would probably replace him.
Maybe DJ. He does like these SCA players.
Oh yeah, right. I didn't even think about SCA. Yeah, DJ would also be a better choice.
But like beyond that, like beyond like basically those 2 people I've pointed out, I don't think there's like a good upgrade for Yapsor.
No, but I do think that there should be better replacements for
there are other 3,
Ace,
basically,
and then mid one is a difficult thing. If he just plays the way he performed like before that, he'll probably still be like
basically you have to gamble in mid one. Like, do you think he's gonna come back or do you not?
Yeah. Ace is actually an interesting topic because, and I think this is more of a reshuffle kind of thing, so we shouldn't really be talking too much about this, but I do think that it's actually really difficult to find really good carries in the West right now. So if they actually look towards like SCA for like a good carry, I wouldn't blame them.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like the carry role is just hard to play right now, though, in general, compared to the rest of the roles. Like
it is, but it's bound to change anyway.
Yeah,
so
it's bound
like,
to change. So, like let me think about it real quick. Like, who are the best like carries right now? Anna, obviously.
Anna Resolution. Arteezy still, despite underperforming. Obviously, Ramses, I guess Matuma Man. I guess you could also have Pycat in there. What else? EE.
EE different though. Like EE basically changed his entire fucking style this season. Like he basically sacrificed himself for the other players.
But the thing is that kind of, if anything, I'd say that makes him an even better carry than most on these lists because he's able to do that change.
Yeah. In that case, you may as well bring back birding. Come back birding. It's time. Yeah, like
no, but I genuinely think it's really difficult in the West to find like a good carry player right now. I made that tweet, right? I made that tweet about like finding like what's the best lineup you could think of for like the next season, and I generally think it's really difficult to come up with like a carry player for the West because we have a lot of mid players like Weeha, we have Mickey, we have like a lot of upcoming mid players as well. But carries, it's really difficult. And I mean, one of the carries that we just talked about, Anna, actually played mid before, so it's like. It's super difficult to find a good carry player in the West, whereas in China it's actually really difficult to find good supports.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is like for the shuffle talk. Secret at this event, probably I do think it's deserved, but I think if they had placed only 7th to 8th,
that would have been fine
I wouldn't have been surprised, and I would have. Yeah, I thought it would have been fine. I guess we could talk about VGG Storm since they are the ones that lost to Secret in that matchup.
Like I thought they were basically. They looked good in the group stages, but I thought that was almost like the fact that they did good in the group stages and they didn't do well in the playoffs basically tells me that their style was too one-dimensional. Like they were just too straightforward. They didn't have enough options.
I think one of the issues for them is that historically at TI, it's actually always, or not always, but a lot of times it's been the case that there will be 3 to 4. I mean, naturally, if you're like 16 teams, it's going to bound to happen. But like 3 to 4 teams from one group will do really well together, so they'll go far in the playoffs. And that's usually because they like somebody is bound to dictate the meta of the game. Like 1 or 2 teams will automatically dictate the meta of the tournament. And then if you're in that same group, you will automatically play towards that meta. Like you will either play along with it, like you'll adapt a lot of things early on, or you'll be able to deal with it because obviously if these teams adapt it.
Yeah.
Like you will rarely actually see that teams from like say Group B will imitate teams from Group A necessarily because I mean that like you won't prepare for them.
Yeah.
Like you won't actually like really research them because you'll prepare for your other opponents. And in that regard, I think it's a little bit unfortunate for VJ Storm that they weren't in the group with like the top teams like Liquid, LGD. Yeah, the group of death. No, I actually think it was almost bad for them because towards like the end of the tournament, it felt like they weren't actually prepared for what came towards them. Like against OG, they were definitely outclassed. Yeah, they were just outclassed, outdrafted. And then in the low bracket, I mean, Windstrike was a free win, but against Secret, it just felt like again they weren't sure what's actually happening right now, guys. Like what? Um, but in general, I think this is like a very promising team. Like,
It looks even more promising now that Universe is in there.
yeah, if yeah, with Universe in there, it looks so much more promising. No offense to sneaking, but I think Universe is definitely an upgrade to that.
Yeah, I think he's an upgrade on every front. Like I couldn't think of a way like he was worse.
Yeah, I mean maybe on like personal level or whatever,
Yeah.
but we don't know that. No, but that's gonna be very scary going forward.
Mm-hmm. So
Optic,
Optic, basically they've run out. They definitely have to. They definitely have to explode this roster, right?
definitely ran out of steam. I feel almost vindicated with the whole CCNC thing.
No,
I still think he was by far the worst player on that team.
yeah, I think he was too. Like there's only so much they could have done with this roster. I think, like I'll put it this way. I guess like they basically got like 7th, 8th, right, and I feel like that's basically as good as they should have gotten at best, all things considered. Like basically, I feel like they already took out like the maximum potential they could from every player, and this is where they got to.
I almost feel like they actually were a bit lucky in that draw. Like if they play Mineski or Vici Gaming, I'm not sure they advance there.
Yeah.
Because I think both teams would have been able to put up a much stronger fight against Serenity than Serenity, and Optic. Again, I just don't really think that they played that well this entire tournament. Like they played well, but not like top 8 well.
Basically, their best wins came against Chinese teams, which famously PPD is good against.
Yeah, and they also drew the least experienced Chinese team.
Yeah,
I think that if they play against like a super veteran Chinese team, like if they play I think if they played against Vici Gaming and Vici Gaming,
well, I don't know if they could have played Vici Gaming because like they played them in groups, right? It would have to be a different.
Yeah, I know, but like in theory, right? Yeah, if they had to play against them, if they had to play against them, in that would have been a rough draw for them. If they had, I don't know, even Mineski, I think Mineski is just much more experienced as well. And the thing with experienced teams is they're able to exploit like weaknesses, like very like small weaknesses. Whereas Serenity, it felt like Serenity were almost like too eager to play that match, and they're like almost too like. It felt like they didn't let the pressure get to them, which was also almost a bad thing in a lot of ways. Or maybe the pressure got to them and they felt like they had to do something. Either way, it felt like they didn't respect Optic enough and they just played like their own game, which isn't necessarily bad, but like, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, like Serenity just wasn't good enough.
Yeah. But they have promising players.
Some promising players, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, I think it basically covers it. Like I don't want to talk about the rest of the teams. Like I guess I'll say this for Vici Gaming, you ended up where exactly I thought you might be, like either very good or very bad, and
all right. I want to say something here about both Vici Gaming and Mineski. I feel so goddamn vindicated for the fact that they placed this badly, I guess.
Yeah.
Because for most of the season, people have been like, "Oh, Mineski is such a good team. Oh, Vici Gaming is such a good team." No. You could see that they were declining in skill and like whatever. Like the fact that people even at this tournament were like saying, I saw actually a tweet. I want to say it was Blitz. Somebody said like, "Oh, sorry, I have to look this up because this was so true." Like I've never been so tilted in my life. I don't want to look up the tweet. Just one of the teams. I want to say it was actually IG or something. I think it was IG.
Yeah.
They played 1-2. Yeah, they tied against Mineski, and then somebody tweeted. And again, it doesn't matter who it was. Somebody tweeted, "Oh, maybe they aren't as bad as we thought they were. They tied Mineski." And I'm like, it is Mineski. Jesus Christ, it is Mineski. Mineski has not been doing well this season.
No.
They did well at one tournament, and that qualified them for TI. So please shut the fuck up. Oh my god, that tilted me so much. I'm almost happy that they underperformed. Actually, I am happy that they not underperformed. I am happy that they didn't get the result that
you're happy that they basically
to.
play at their level, and this is their level.
This is their level because A, I know I was right. B, they will have to make a change. They should have changed at DAC and that's what they said, right? Oh, if we hadn't won DAC, we probably would have made a roster change.
I thought they should have done it anyway.
They should have done it. They should have realized that just because they won, they only did it because.
Gold.
The thing is, I don't think that they ever believed that they would perform any better than what they did right now. I just think that they knew or that they were scared of not making TI if they had made a roster change, because they weren't sure how many slots SEA was going to get, and TNC and Fnatic are scary to face if you play with a team that is unprepared or doesn't have as much experience, right? So I kind of get why they did stuck together, but I'm glad that they're going to disband, because there's so much talent on the team that needs to actually play in proper teams.
Go their separate ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess on that note, I guess we can talk about Fnatic a little bit. They fucking trashed here. Rest in peace.
There's a new super lineup to be rumored. I know we're not in the shuffle thing, but there's a bunch of rumors about a super lineup again, and I look forward to that. Because I think this team in SEA,
okay.
in SEA, so it's something along the lines of Ice is supposedly joining them, and Jabs as well, basically teaming up with Abed and DJ or whatever. I just really hope that this team is gonna find again, pretty much for the same reason as Mineski, they're good players, they just don't fit together right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that they're gonna Abed is, in my opinion, should have been one of the MVPs this tournament. He should have been on a team that allowed him to be MVP of this tournament. That's how good he was going into this tournament, I thought. But yeah, that just didn't work out.
This is how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, I think. Was there any other?
Don't really need to
about in these?
Nah. This is bottom of the barrel. This is trash. VG Thunder trash. Newbie trash. Windstrike beyond trash. They should have never even made that upper bracket round 2 or whatever, or lower bracket round 2 or whatever.
Didn't they fucking they made it through a tiebreaker at the end, right? Was that Windstrike?
Yeah, they went into tiebreaker against IG.
God,
and then they drew Newbie. They literally played the 2 worst teams at this event, or two of the worst teams at this event.
Mm-hmm.
I guess TNC could be a little bit talked about. They need to make a more drastic change, I think. If you go from top 8 to top 9 to 12 to now bottom 8 or bottom 4 even, you have to realize that things are not working out. The core of this team has been together for way too long, I think. They need to make a bigger change. They changed supports, moved Cuckoo to support, and got an Armel that was on paper a really good change, and it did work out for a while. But I think the core of this roster has just been together for way too long. Similar to what we've talked about with Liquid and VP. I think you can't just stay together for this long. It might be enough for their region, because
they're better than the players in the rest of the region.
Or it's good enough to be third best team, but that shouldn't be the ambition of any team down there.
Basically because they're already at that level, they should go for the next level, and it's not they're at a weird Liquid place where it's if we make the gamble we could get better, but if we make it worse, we drop down horrendously.
I mean, they definitely can't make it worse.
The gamble here is not that bad, in terms of ups and downs for TNC compared to Liquid, for instance. So yeah, it makes sense. I guess I'll move it to this point. What was your favorite series in this tournament? Was it the finals?
Actually, I think it was the upper bracket.
Yeah, I thought the upper bracket was the best game.
I thought it was better. I thought the finals was too riddled with mistakes. Then there was also the one-sided. I thought that the 2 games that LGD won were actually pretty one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one-sided, but also because OG made a lot of mistakes. And then, even in game 4 was it? I thought that OG made a lot of mistakes. They made a comeback in 65 minutes or whatever, but I thought they could have made a comeback at 55 minutes if they had just played it better. Mm-hmm. They made a lot of mistakes actually on those cores, and that's the thing, right? At the end of the day, nobody will look at those mistakes because it doesn't matter, because you still win TI, you still won that game, and your lineup was always designed to come back, but. If they don't finish that comeback and they don't win TI, you will look at those mistakes and be well, that's how I talk about you look at how I'm talking about that one waveform play from Ame. If they win that game, if they win that tournament, you won't even I wouldn't even think about it, and I probably would have forgotten about it a long time ago. But because they did lose, and because that was actually a game losing moment, that is what we talk about. And that was what we focus on, and I think history is written by the winners, but I still think we should look at what the winners did going into that win, and we should recognize that they were actually a very flawed team.
Mm-hmm.
and they're by no means perfect. And I think that I know this is tangent off topic sort of, but yeah. Anyway, or the finals I thought was riddled with way too many mistakes. Still, I mean, it was still probably the best finals actually we've ever had at a TI.
Yeah, probably.
But if I had to compare it like to the upper bracket finals, I think actually was.
Yeah, I thought the upper bracket finals was the best series in the entire tournament.
Yeah.
It just happens like the finals had that extra like spice to it, and the fact like it was literally the last thing.
And I mean, it's literally also like 2 games more, right?
Yeah.
So it's like more action in a lot of ways as well. Like and there was also like the crazy moment with like Ceb just blinking in. Like I think if I had to make like a play,
Ceb
of the
literally
tournament,
like saved their ass in game 4. Isn't that's a fucking crazy? Isn't that the fucking craziest of all the fucking stories? Yeah, your coach who turned carry stand-in, turned off-lane stand-in, has now literally saved your TI life in TI finals. Like what? What is this?
I actually think that performance was more impressive than the Clockwork performance from from FY in that same series, because I think dictating the pace of the game as a 4 position from early on is significantly easier because you have much more freedom to impact multiple lanes. But as a 3 position to win the game that heavily is actually pretty insane.
Yeah.
Because you can dominate your own lane, but then transitioning to a sort of like dominating performance across the map is really difficult.
And basically the entire like strategy is built off of that fact that he had to do this, and he did do it.
And I was just about to say, like, he literally had to do it. Like, if you as a 4 position Clockwork, you don't hit a hero shot, like, it's whatever. Like, if you draft for that, you're actually stupid in the first place. But I mean, I guess in a lot of ways, it was also risky and kind of stupid to draft for like the axe to carry you. But I don't know, just still doing it as a 3 position is just so insane to me. So yeah, that was probably the play of the tournament for me. But if I had to vote for like a series, it'd probably be the upper bracket finals.
All right, and guess we'll go to the MVP because I think you and Knoxville won for Miracle. I was actually very close. I chose maybe because I thought
you shouldn't chose maybe.
I actually should have gone with FY instead. But I thought listen, before we got to like upper bracket finals and grand finals, maybe it was looking real good. That's all I'm saying.
No, for sure. And I for sure thought that he was probably gonna get it as well. Like if like going into the OG match, I thought he was gonna get it. But yeah, I think FY is the MVP of this tournament. I know there's been a couple of people making a case for like any of OG's players, but I think OG won because of their strategy more so than of individual play, whereas to me, FY literally just carried games single-handedly. Like, you don't need a strategy if your 4 position support is like top 3 net worth 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah, I felt like basically FY was the best player at this tournament. Agree with you there.
Yeah.
Like, it was touch and go because like I said, I thought maybe he was like very fucking good until he got to like the upper bracket finals where he's just very good. But at that point, like FY like outshone him at those critical moments. So yeah, that's just how I feel about it. All right, how about this then? What are your like top picks for each position?
Support's definitely FYX Nova.
Yeah.
Almost no doubt. I think offline probably S4. I think actually S4 has been the most consistent and best offlaner. I think Chalice had the biggest growth in this tournament. Like I thought he kept progressing and improving as an offlaner, but I think S4 was much more consistent. And outside of that, I just don't think there was any offlaner that really impressed at this tournament at all. Maybe. No, actually, I can't actually think of anybody.
No, like no offlaner was really great here.
But yeah, Ceb, for all of his greatness, I think individually speaking, he definitely did not perform as well as either of those two. Mid, probably maybe. Well, no, probably maybe. I don't think any other mid player. There's a case to be made from Sumail. I've seen people pick Sumail here, but I would probably still pick maybe, and then carry. I'd pick Ana.
Yeah.
So basically, X Nova, FY, S4, maybe Ana.
Fucking crazy. Like LGS3, the best 5 players.
I mean,
they still can't win.
They still can't win
because Ana is a fucking god, apparently. See that? Yeah. You see that fucking Ana play on Reddit?
The what?
The Ana play on Reddit, like
which one? There were multiple ones. The ones where he's selling the shit.
Yeah, the one where he's selling his shit like at the very last second.
Yeah, to have enough gold for buyback. Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. Like, there's one comment in there, and I can totally relate to that. Like, in that time frame, and where he sells his stuff, I don't even realize I'm getting attacked. Like I mean, it's sort of an exaggeration, but it kind of rings true. like having that reaction time and then the awareness and then the ability to do that on time. It's just incredibly crazy, and it's so
like
I don't know. It's so clutch. Odds are they have literally been just talking about buyback gold, and that maybe he literally just talked about or maybe thought about needing to sell something to have buyback gold. So in that regard, it might not be as crazy, but still, I think Ana, I mean, in general, just has pulled out some really crazy, really good plays.
Yeah, really, really fucking great plays. And then there's like the game against OG, like Sumail was literally hunting him like 24/7 the entire game, and he just survived forever.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if the MVP isn't FY, it's probably Anna. It's basically what I'm saying.
What's your top 5?
Pretty much the same. I wavered between maybe or Sumail, but I felt like maybe was just better overall, so I went with maybe. I think definitely in terms of supports, FY was the best. Like you can go with Jerax if you want. I feel like there's like an argument there, but I feel like if you're talking about in terms of consistency and overall gameplay, I feel like FY trumps Jerax. Whereas like Jerax, he might hit the same ceilings, but he didn't hit it as many times as FY did for me.
But yeah, pretty much the same here. That's what I thought as well.
Yeah, and then X Nova, I just thought he had the best vision relative to what he was doing for his team.
Like, it was actually crazy, and I considered making a video about it, but it's way too exhausting. But the way he controlled the map as a support early on was just incredible. The last time I saw that was actually from solo,
when he was
earlier
like
this season.
Yeah, when he was like fucking dominating people.
He would literally walk like he wouldn't like it felt like never was any of his like wasted, and he like place wards, very deep wards as well, or just really key wards. And the thing is, he would just read where the opponents were going to be the next like 4 to 5 minutes. Like he always knew where they were going to be, and that's to me it's just
like
I don't know, fucking crazy.
X Nova had so many of these random plays like in the middle of the game where like he would literally be in the exact right place at the exact right time. Yeah. Like just flanking somebody, like no TPs. He was like walking there 2 minutes ahead of time. Like what is this? Like that's why I had to go with him. Even though I actually thought like No-Tail was actually quite good, all things considered, because it was like a role change, and like he played like unique heroes, etc. But I feel like in the end I had to go with X Nova, and like I thought for a second about Kuroki or Fly, but I feel like Fly was just too one dimensional compared to those other two. I think Kuroki wasn't that great outside of the group stages for me.
Yeah, I actually think that Kuroki. I agree with you in that regard, but I do think, and just wanted to highlight that Kuroki actually played a really good tournament.
Yeah.
Like individually speaking, in terms of like individual skill and like performances, which doesn't always happen that much. Like he'll more often than not be actually the worst player of his team, which is, I mean, it's sort of usual or normal for like
the 5 to be that
and for captains, obviously, because you're obviously preoccupied with other things. But I thought this tournament he actually played really well, as like individually speaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like Kuroki definitely like in that mix. Like I feel like if I was going to like not pick X Nova, I might go with Kuroki.
Yeah.
In that sense, who else was there? Anna, I think, is pretty obvious. I don't think anybody was close to him in terms of the carry role. Right? And then off lane, challenge.
I mean, the thing is, if LGD win, we probably look towards Ame. Because honestly, Ame has had to beat.
I mean, if LGD win, that would have been the difference. Is Ame beating Ana? So, yeah.
That's true. But yeah, no, yeah.
But yeah, like off lane, I don't really want to give it to anybody. Because it's not like I thought they were bad. It's just like this meta, like nobody really popped off. It can really pop off as the offlane necessarily. But like I'll put it this way, like I thought like S4 was the most consistent, but I thought like Chalice had the best peaks, but then fucking Mad had the best game.
Yeah, that's actually a good way of putting it.
So like if I look at it that way, it's like. Those are like clearly the three. Those are clearly I think the 3 best offlaners at this event, and so it comes down to like your preference, I guess. I guess I'd probably go with. I don't know, man. It's just too hard, but fuck it. I'll go with like maybe I'll go with fucking Mad. I guess like just cause I feel like that critical game forward maybe. And just because of like the way the role worked, I feel like he understood it as well as the other guys did, even if he wasn't like Like here's the thing. Here's why I'd give it. Here's why I'll give it to fucking Matt over the other two. Is he understood the role as good as they did, but he also had specific like picks and like heroes that only he could play. That like kind of like reversed the entire game.
No, that's actually a very good point.
Like
that's actually a very good point.
So like, we're talking about like tree, axe. Like these are things nobody else was fucking picking.
Even the Magnus.
Even the Magnus, the end, like. Yeah, so I guess I'll go with him. Even though like I feel like individually speaking, the other two are better than he is. In terms of raw knowledge, he beat them out. And
no, that's definitely a good point.
So maybe I'll go with fucking Matt in this case.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. All right. So I think that about covers everything. Sir. All right. One last award. Was there anybody who deserved the Shiki Award?
Was there anybody who deserved the Shiki Award?
As in they like literally got boosted by their entire team to a place that they didn't deserve.
I mean, I will always give the Shiki Award of the season to CCNC. I actually don't necessarily think he was that boosted this event because I think he still played like fairly okay and like, but I still think like he's definitely by far the worst player of that team. Nah, I can't really think of anybody that got like super boosted.
Yeah,
like definitely not as bad as Shiki. So I guess if I had to give it to somebody, I would probably give it to CCNC.
Yeah, like you don't have to give it to somebody. Listen, Shiki Award is a sacred award. Like
it is a sacred
like,
award.
It is so hard to get a Shiki Award, to be honest. Like you have to be fucking like I think I wrote like basically accused a fucking genius for getting Shiki to the finals. Yeah. And he was. So yeah, I think that about ends it for this one. Unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about.
No, I'm good.
All right.
I look so forward to the shuffle video because once the shuffle is done, there's going to be so much juicy stuff to talk about.
TI 8.5. We will see you guys then. Later.